Welcome everyone. This is Greg M Life on the go, doing my sports segment here, track and field, of course. Kind of covering some track and field tips that I come across from this website, X Pollination. You see, I have a number of different coaches on there that I'm gonna read through some of the concepts and techniques that they talked about in their presentation. And this is going to be for educational purposes and all that, and my analysis and input. um, See if I agree or disagree. um, Covering a little bit day by day, and add my experience in there. Greg. I'm a two-time Olympian, 1984 Olympic and silver medalist, 1988 Olympian, also competed for Jamaica, and at college here in the United States, Abilene Christian University Division II, and I was a graduate assistant track coach at Michigan State University um, for about a year and a half, and just trying to bring my little bit of information and input to help out people that are looking for information that they can use to enhance their training and improve their technique and development in track and field. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm gonna go over some stuff that I came across. Uh, Here we go. Sprinting technique, a complete guide to proper sprinting form. This is not my article. This is just information I come across as I surf the website. I find information that I find interesting that I'll provide input, analysis, and use for education. So again, this is explanation. I'm not promoting them. I'm not a member of this staff or crew. So I just came across this in my internet feed. So we're going to see what they have to offer here. Of course, they give some information here. This is a definitive guide on proper sprinting form, which is important. You cannot run faster than the form or technique will allow you to run. We're going to give you detailed step-by-step approach based on the latest scientific research and fastest athletes on the planet. The sprinting techniques covered in this guide has been proven to dramatically increase speed across a wide range of sports. So it goes on to say here, whether you are a track and field coach or an athlete looking to take seconds off a 100-meter time, a football player wanting to improve your 40-yard dash, someone that wants to incorporate speed work and sprinting into your training routine, the tactics and information provided here will teach you how to get faster. And you'll get insights and demonstration from Olympian Jeremy Dodson, an elite sprinting coach, Karim Abdel Wahab. So if you want to learn how to sprint with proper form, this is the guide. So let's see what they got to offer here. Of course, they have a table of content. They have different things. I might not cover all of this, so let me see what they have so far. The scale of sprinting, 1.1, concept 1. Let's take a look at this, see what they're saying here. Speed is not something you either is not something you either have or you don't. If you put in the work and develop the right technique, you will get faster. I have to say I agree with that. When I was a track and field or a sprinter in high school, I didn't consider myself 100% natural. Some athletes, they don't have to train as hard. They just naturally seem to just have it genetically or whatever. And some of us, we have some talent and we have to work at it to improve constantly. So, of course, your genetic makeup is a major factor when it comes to your performance ceiling and ability to compete at an elite level. So I agree with that somewhat. I'm not a scientist, but I do have experience with some of this as far as other athletes and myself competing back in the day. But even the most gifted athletes have to learn to correct the technique and spend countless hours refining it. And I've seen that with, Usain Bolt, watching him, from afar, competing in Jamaica as a young high school athlete all the way up to the international level. He didn't always have the best of form, but that boy, as we call it, had talent. He's a young man now, but he got with another coach eventually. I think he went from his high school coach to the national coach, and this guy have over 30 years experience, so he was able to work with his technique and different segments of his training, strength, and so forth. To work on his mechanics, or what some people will call your form, proper form. It says Christian Coleman is currently in the USA and World Championship, and it is rare to read an interview where he doesn't talk about the amount of work he puts in. It is true that the fastest people on the planet all won the genetic lottery. That doesn't mean that speed is unteachable. I agree with that. I believe you can learn to be fast with proper technique. You can compete even with somebody that supposedly got it, that has natural abilities, so to speak. You can't change your DNA as of this writing. To become a world-class sprinter, you can, but you can change your technique and training to maximize your individual potential and get faster. I have to say I agree. Like I said, I wasn't one of those that was natural. I did put in a lot of work. Back in the day, growing up in Jamaica and Ireland, I started training from basically the elementary level. We call basic school, for primary school, high school. But I didn't have the greatest of coach. I mean, back then in the 70s to the 80s, my coaches weren't as well learned as far as technique and strength and nutrition and biomechanics. We just kind of like the different coaches would just come up and coach you based off of their experience and their knowledge at the time. I mean, things have become more scientific and precise now, and people are performing much better. There's Usain Bolt there. Look at Christian Coleman, Gatlin over here. I think that's the World Championship where Gatlin surprised everybody. All right, let's go into this concept number 2. Sprinting is a motor learning skill. Agree or disagree? I think so. I think most of this I'm probably going to agree with. Motor learning or motor learning skill, and it's defined here as a process by which movements are executed more quickly and accurately with practice. Think of a pitcher practicing a curveball or a basketball player working on free throws. It takes a lot of specific practice to become great. And that's a key word. Specific practice. I highlight that. Because you got to, as a sprinter and track and field specifically, you got to work on the specific skills. If you're a 100-meter runner, you got to do the work that's going to develop your speed, the motor learning, starting blocks, drills. That's going to get your muscle firing for the specific event. All that stuff come in handy. Drive phase, turnover, force off the track, all this different technical stuff people talk about. The same idea applies to sprinting. This means that you can train nervous systems and muscles to react and move in a way that produce optimal speed. And, some of this stuff is technical. I'm thinking of one day maybe doing my own take on things, but in a simpler manner, maybe just training program. And I'm not much about, I've never written a book, but besides what I did in my master's thesis, but I'm glad to come across other ideas here that I can get some motivation to maybe put my own work out. The same idea applies to sprinting. This means we can train the nervous system and muscles to react and move in a way that produce optimal speed. So for those out there that are not scientific, sometimes, these scientific talk make you think, well, these guys know what they're talking about, but you got to understand what they're talking about, nervous system and all that. Some of us are not, inclined about our biology and all that. But it has to do with your whole body's way, from your brain, you know, senses that, you feel, you touch, you smell, stuff like that, training your body to have a specific reaction to a certain event. That's how I interpret it. The philosophy approach is very different compared to typical sprint training. Many athletes and coaches believe that the way to get faster and develop speed is to just spend a lot of time sprinting. In theory, this makes sense, but when it comes to endurance, running, and fitness, more miles and trainings typically lead to a better aerobic capacity and faster times to a point. And yes, you do have to do sprint specific work, especially when you're getting into the competitive season. You do shorter work, but more quality, working anaerobic systems a lot, which is you're doing a lot more power workout, faster runs with less recovery, stuff like that, as opposed to the fall where you're just working on your form, working on conditioning, getting stronger, getting your body and mind in tune for the upcoming season, stuff like that. Just to put it simply. And sometimes, some people, when they're coaching, they get so technical, the athlete probably might not understand. They may get the gist maybe. But you can't train like a distant runner, put it this way, you can't train like a distant runner and run like a sprinter. Because, everybody by now probably heard of fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers, which is what you're going to be developing, whether in the weight room or on the track. If you work more on your distant training, not too much power work in the weight room, developing strength and power for the sprinting and well-balanced muscle development all around, you're probably not going to be able to go from doing slower, distant type of workout to all of a sudden going to run 100 meters when your body and your muscle is not trained and prepared for that type of work. You'll probably pull something. And sometimes some coaches don't know how to do that. You got the distant coach who's head of the track and field program, and the distant coach try to coach everybody the same way, and then you wonder why some of these guys are not performing well, and that's another problem right there. Sometimes distant coaches only care about the distant runners, and the sprinters are just like there to augment the program. If they run fast, they run fast. Some might respond and run because of natural ability, but they're not going to be at their best. So that's just my take on it. However, sprinting isn't just running fast. After a certain point, speed doesn't improve with repetition and time spent on the track. Why? Because the technique and biomechanics of sprinting is very different than running, which is true. You got to learn proper form, turnover, stride frequency, foot plant off the ground, how quickly you spend on how much time you spend on the ground, turning over, arm drive, upright, slight lean, hip flexion, all that kind of different stuff, to get technical. But these are things you work on constantly, as opposed to just going out there and running, 10 times 100 meters every day in the hopes and try to run faster and faster and think that maybe doing that every day is going to get you faster. But if your technique is not right and you're not properly conditioned strength-wise to handle running that fast, you will get injured. So you got to have a well-balanced development. And there's a video down here. Let me play it. This guy here It's Coach Karim. I guess he's from Explanation, this company that put this information out. Let me see what he's saying.
We want to approach sprint development and the skill of sprinting as a skill versus only fast running. So as basketball players would do many reps to perfect their free throw, or a football quarterback would practice his throw, many reps to do that, to perfect his skill. We want to do the same thing with sprinting. We just don't want to go have our athletes sprint fast and expect them to get better.
All right, interesting. So, yeah, you do need to do speed work, but you have to remember the different seasons. So in the off season, you're working on strength development, form. That's why people do those knee lift drills, back kicks, plyometrics drill to develop speed and power. They may do boundings to help you develop hip flexor strength, stuff that you're gonna need in high speed, high velocity events like the 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, shoot, even the 800 meter. So optimal sprinting technique and posture doesn't come naturally and must be developed, which is true. And that's the reason why you have to train. You can't just go out there and run. Yes, you can if you have natural ability or genetics, some might call it. But you're still not going to be the best that you can be without working on the form. Someone that's not as talented as you might still beat you because they're well polished in their training. On the surface, good running and sprinting form share some commonalities, but both require neutral pelvic, head looking forward, tall posture, foot strike to be underneath the center of mass, etc. But dig a little deeper and the differences become very apparent. And for everybody that doesn't know all this, it's talking about proper form. When you're sprinting, you can't be leaning back, your head can't be up in the air. You have to have a proper posture, turn or foot strike. Are you flat-footed on the track trying to sprint? Are you on the ball of your feet? The center mass. Kind of having a forward slight lean. You don't want to be leaning too much forward, too far forward, or too much, backwards, or too straight up. Imagine running against a wind. You got drag and all that kind of stuff. You have to worry about the wind blowing against, being too upright or slightly leaning back, and then not being able to have a proper force down the track as far as maximum velocity and maintaining your speed, so to speak. So the role of technique is substantially more important in sprinting versus running. The body angles, ground contact time, arm movement, foot strike are totally different. So trying to get faster without understanding, practicing correct sprinting technique only serves to reinforce bad habits. And that's true. And then there's concept 3, which we'll go into later. I don't want to do a long video, but I like this that I found here on the internet. Should make for good discussions. So I have to agree. You got to have proper form, proper technique, proper proper strength development. You know what I'm saying? Because no matter how much talent you have, if you don't have a well-balanced workout routine from the off season into the competitive season, whether you're track and field athlete, football, basketball, baseball, everybody have to work on their techniques. You cannot perform better than the technique will allow you. You have sloppy technique, you have sloppy performance. You got to be not just effective in your training, but efficient. Efficiency comes with practice and perfecting, the specific areas of your event. If you're a track and field runner, you got to have good strength training program, nutrition, proper rest, recovery time. I think I mentioned technique and so forth. You can't just go out there and expect to try to run fast every day and you're not well balanced or expect to run fast, then you have very bad form or bad mechanics. You don't know anything about how to turnover, how to maximize arm drive, proper positioning or form while running, how to stay relaxed and so forth. So this is just one of the things I want to cover. You know, sprinting and getting fast involves a lot of different things that you got to put together, almost like a puzzle. Once you put it together and you keep working on it, you try to maintain it through the season. And the person who can maintain this and stay injury free, because it's involved injury prevention also, will be the guy or woman that has the best season performance. And you got to also know, once you put this together and you're in the competitive season, how often you're going to compete too. And that's another thing that we could talk about, because you don't want to be burnt out too. So this is just some information I wanted to share. Hopefully this helped, and we'll get into some more later on and for discussion purposes. So till next time, take care, and we'll come back and address some more information on sprinting and proper form and how to get faster. I might share with you some of my example training programs when I was an Olympian and in college and preparing to run my race and run the fastest time I could. So maybe it can help a few of you guys. But disclaimer before I go, always consult though with your coach, your doctor first of all. Make sure you're cleared with your doctor. Talk with your coach. Make sure you're getting right information, that you're capable and able to perform any workout routines that anybody's offering from the internet, YouTube, or a random guy like me talking about, sharing my own ideas about training programs for track and fields. So with that said, I'm out.